Welcome to a brand new track guide here on Bahrain, going back over the Event 1 tracks from F1 Sim Racing 2025. Of course, playing F1 at 24, going through all the intricate details about how I go about mastering this track and trying to extrapolate the maximum lap time potential, and that starts already on the pitch straight here, going over in a slow speed lap and then in a full speed lap after, so you see it all in both effect, low speed and high speed as well. DRS is of course going to be opened as you go down the pitch straight, but you want to be on the right hand side of the track all the way over this sort of painted area. The reason for this is it's smoother than the normal part of the track. So if you go over to this part of the track, it can be a little bit bumpy, and of course we're trying to get the ride height as low as possible to get the maximum ground effect from the car that can be possible generated. So going over to the smoother part of the track that hasn't been quite rendered in the game to the same level of detail as a normal part of the track has been, allows us to gain about half a tenth, maybe a tenth down the straight. We use it as much as possible and then pulling to the left hand side of the track all the way at the last opportunity we can to maximize the advantage down the pitch straight. 100-meter board braking, and you're not going to be using the outside curbing here in the braking zone. I did test it quite a lot in the preparation for F1 Esports, but just couldn't find a consistent way of getting it to transition back over the curb that the car was settled and ready to go towards the corner. In third gear here, you want, of course, to bring it to the white line, but of course not touching the apex curb as it's quite big and will unsettle the balance of the car. Bringing the car about 3/4 to the left-hand side of the track, leaving about one car width away from the white line, then opening up corner 2. The reason you want to do this is so you can actually take corner 2 completely flat out, and what you can actually do is get really close to this bollard on the inside, and in fact you can actually take it out as long as you still have one tire always connected with the white line. You can see we did it a bit too much there as the lap got invalidated, but ideally you're looking to take out the bollard and then be about this sort of trajectory on the racing line. That way there's always one tire in contact with the track and allows you to minimize some distance while going over the track here. Of course, flat out and opening a DRS as you're running up to what is officially turn 4 on the track. I really called it turn 3 because the kink before isn't really a corner in a Formula 1 spec downforce configuration. Toward the end of the straight here, you're going to be braking about 70 meters before the corner and all the way to the left-hand side of the track, bringing your right-hand tire to the maximum usage of the track possible, and then opening up the track. It's quite difficult, actually, as you transition back over this curbing, as it's quite possible to lock a tire and lose a bit of lap time, and then you're trying to get back to the inside curbing here. Do not touch the inside part of the red and white curbing, but use up to the white line, and it's really sensitive to get back on the power here. In fact, this is really where I lost a lot of lap time during my Q1 lap here in F1 Sim Racing. I got a big snap of oversteer on the exit, just getting a bit too greedy on the power, and that cost me about 2/10, and then I was able to recover a lot of lap time, as you'll see from my highlight videos after the season has concluded, but it was not enough to get out of qualification 1. Getting back to the tutorial anyway, on the exit you want to be using as much curbing as possible, trying to keep your car nice and high just to be maximizing your track width on the exit of the corner. Now, there are two approaches going into this corner. You either take the safe approach that you only put 2 wheels on the outside curbing. This is much more consistent, predictable, and applicable for all types of racing in the sense of being in a race or in a qualifying situation. The optimal lap time, though, is really having the car over the red and white curbing. The reason this is inconsistent is you actually do bottom out the car a little bit, so it can be harder to get the car turned into this next right-hander. On the right-hander, though, it is pivotal to be as much over the inside curbing as possible. And the reason for this is you can actually see there's a lot of camber in the track here. If you go into nose camber, you can see there's a lot of camber as you lean in to the actual corner. And the reason that you want to be on the inside curbing is really it lowers the distance of the corner, but really it keeps the car a bit more balanced as you go through. If you do not take that much of the curbing on the inside, then you kind of end up in the situation that the car is sort of stuck between using the camber or not using the camber of the road. Whereas when you're actually completely on the inside curbing, the car is actually having a bit more platform to play with. Although this can make the car a bit more unstable, as you actually do have a bigger gap of air underneath the diffuser of the car, and this is where you can get big snaps of oversteer from as you transition back over to the normal part of the track, because simply the diffuser of the car is not going to be working as efficiently while it's hanging in the air of the gap between the cambered part of the track and the right hand side part of the curbing. But yeah, in key point summary, you want to minimize the distance, that's why you use more curbing on the inside, but the platform of the car can be a bit flatter and can be a bit easier to predict as you're going over this sort of really treacherous part of the apex curbstones. If you're using less of the curbstone, then as you transition back over the track, then it can have a big step of oversteer, and generally that's why the car can be unpredictable on the exit there. On the left hand side, don't really use the inside curbing as it's flat out anyway, and only use two wheels on the outside curbing here, so it can allow you plenty of time and plenty of ability to get the car back over to the left hand side of the track. There's not really a braking reference here, but you can see as the blue on the left hand side of the track transitions to a sort of lighter shade of blue, is a good opportunity to brake here and get the car slowed down, using up as much of the road possible. Do not use the inside curbstone here, as this will unsettle the car, and only use up to the white line. On the exit here, if you need to have a bit more track width, you can be using up all the exit curbstone, but I prefer not really to do that if I can avoid it. But if you do have like a snap of oversteer in the middle of the corner, it can be quite good to be using up all the way on the left hand side of the road to get back to power ASAP. Probably the most difficult braking zone of the whole calendar in F1 sim racing. You want to bring your car all the way to the outside of the road and sort of pointing your car towards the Aramco signboard on the outside of the track, and continuously adding more and more steering lock as you get closer and closer to the corner. There's not really a braking reference here, so you really have to brake when you feel confident and how you can maximize that going into the corner. As you actually get to the corner, there's a little trick here that could be applicable if you have a car that's quite understeery, especially in a racing stint, and you really have to focus on getting the car rotated. If you have a car that's quite rotating well and quite oversteering, pointy in many situations, do not use the outside curbing as you arrive towards the corner. But if you have a car that's understeering, I should say, if you have a car that's understeering quite a lot, you can actually use the outside curbing with the rear tires to sort of pick up a little bit of traction loss as you go into the corner and help rotate the car around. You can see even in that situation at low speed, we're able to get the car rotated quite well on this outside curbing. You can see just picking up the throttle, because there's less grip on the actual outside curbing, it allows me to rotate the car a bit easier. So if you're really good on the brake management and trying not to be over aggressive on the brake, this can be a good option for you to help rotate the car in this apex. Do not hit the inside curbstone, but then on the exit of the corner, use up all the road possible, but try to travel in a straight line on the exit to get yourself off the outside curbing ASAP, and this can allow you to travel less distance down the straight, and of course get the DRS open quicker because you're not wheel spinning on the outside curbstones. Coming down into the left-hander, turn 11. Again, no real braking reference here, but about 60 meters before the corner, or what can be about this blue marking on the track on the right-hand side, you're going to start hitting the brake and then going down the gears. You can take this in 4th gear or 5th gear, depending on the rotation of the car. If you have quite an oversteery car, then I really advise taking it in 5th gear. If you have a car that's a bit more understeery, drop it down to 4th and help the rotation. Take the inside curbstone and take the exit curbstone as well, just to open up the track. Bring the car back over to the left hand side of the road and use the two inside wheels on the inside curbstone just to help minimize distance as you go through this apex. Running into the start of Sector 3, you want to be using all the road on the entry to this corner, and then you're going to be turning in as late as possible as the corner gets very tight in the middle and the exit phases of this apex. Two wheels on the inside curbstone and then picking up the power ASAP. Watching out for snap oversteer though on the exit, and running right up and using up all the road possible. Running down into the final corner of the lap, final corner of Bahrain circuit here, 100 meters on the left hand side. You can brake just after this, so really underneath the Pirelli marker board is a good place to be, but you can aim for the 100 meters and then go for about where this paint strip ends on the left hand side tire, and then braking down the gears and turning in as late as possible once again. The exit of this corner is much like similar to the corner before, that it gets tighter the further you go into the apex of the track. So You can take the inside curbstone here, but it will unsettle the car on the exit. So I prefer to avoid that apex and then just let the car gradually go through a normal trajectory on the track, but then picking up the throttle ASAP. And you're sort of pointing the car, anticipating that the track actually opens up a little bit more from this sort of exit phase as well. You can see if you have a trajectory that is pointing here, the track is very, very tight, and then you actually end up with more track usage to use. But if you're anticipating that in the middle of the corner, then you can actually point your trajectory of the car and actually massively utilize the exit of the road. And you can see by doing this, I'm able to carry one smooth traditional line onto the exit of the track. Now we're going to go for a full speed lap here in Bahrain to try and show you all of the key features of this track at normal speed to help you dial yourself in to maximizing this track. Of course, keep the car to the right hand side of the road, down the pit straight, open up the track, 100-meter board, down into third gear, let the car rotate back on the power nice and smoothly, and you can see using the inside road there, the car can snap oversteer as you go over the curbstone though, so just be careful of that. Braking just after the 100-meter board, and you can see going down the gears, very careful on the power here, and then using up all the road. Going to be conservative here, don't use up all the road on the left hand side. You can see through the right, through the left, the car's understeering a bit, so wasn't able to pick up my ideal racing line. But through the right hand, they're using up a nice racing line here, moving the brake bias rearward by 2% just to minimize front locking. And yeah, you can see just getting the car slowed down on the exit curbing there, and that helped me rotate as I knew the car was going to be understeering from my previous sort of feelings in the lap. Moving the brake bias one click forward, 60 meters before the corner, down into fifth gear, and letting the car sort of rotate very nicely through. Optimally, I think I would have used fourth gear looking back there. But anyway, starting sector 3, down into fourth gear, pick up a late apex, back on the power ASAP, and now heading up to the final apex of the lap. Remember, turn in as late as you feel comfortable to do so on this corner, and you can pick up a good trajectory on the exit. And now that is a full speed lap here in Bahrain, ending a qualifying lap. You keep the car to the left hand side just simply to minimize distance running up to the start finish line. But that was a full speed lap here in Bahrain, and just to show you a setup example, I use 50-50 wings. This is taken from time trial, bear in mind. Of course, I can't show you the full esports setup. But yeah, 50-50, 130-100, all the way left on the camber and toes, 41-1, 18-16, 20-60 on the ride height, and then, yeah, on the tire pressures, I would recommend going maximum. Probably if you want a bit more stability as well, you probably could take down that front anti-roll bar, just to bring a bit more finesse into the car, let's say, because that was quite understeery. Additionally, you could probably add a bit more rear anti-roll bar as well, but off a baseline setup to be using online in a racing situation as well, the understeer will help you keep stability in the car, so it's a pretty good setup overall. With that being said, hopefully this video was helpful, informative, can make you faster on Bahrain as well. Until next time, I've been Brendon Leigh, glad to have ciao ciao, bye bye.